Welcome back, baseball fans. An elimination video eliminating the Chicago White Sox. Who we're first looking at, this is last year. This is the year 2023. I want to do a little comparison here of the White Sox. They got knocked out in the divisional round against the Detroit Tigers, a team that went on to go to the World Series, losing to the Pirates. This White Sox team, it's 268, 394 run average, 221 runs scored, 197 given up. Dick Allen and Carlos May at the very top of average and on base, over 400. Just leading in the club along the way. Orta, 293, a little bit below what his card rates. Probably had more percentage against lefties, skewing that result. Decent results from Stinson and Henderson, Muser. Walt Williams is no longer around. Bill Melton had a down year, but he had 8 home runs and 26 RBI, but the average is bad. Buddy Bradford really had a bad year, hitting 199 with just 4 home runs, but that was probably the weakest part of an offense that hit 268. Pitching, Wilbur Wood is pretty much just set out to the mound, and even if the pitch is bad, he doesn't come out. So he has to take the bad with the good here. 9-7 isn't a great winning percentage. 138 innings, but a 2.80 ERA and a 1.13 WHIP. But it's basically the availability to pitch on 2 days rest makes everything else work for this team. At least last year it did. Tom Bradley 7-3, 356. Bart Johnson was reasonable. Stan Bonsom, and then the bullpen was bad last year. It was horrible. Lou Krause, Terry Forster, Dave Lemons managed to somehow not have an ERA over 4, but just 12 saves total for a 25-21 club. Now let's take a look at what happened this year. So they're 30-21. They're plus 5 games. They get past the divisional round Tigers this time. They get to the league championship against the A's and fight hard and lose in 6 games. Basically, the White Sox have probably the best roster they're ever going to have in this era. But the Oakland A's are doing the same thing. They're having the best roster they're going to have. Even with journeyman at the bottom of the Oakland roster, their basic core group is stunning. And that was the difference as to why we're eliminating the White Sox today. Let's start with the hitting. So Bucky Dent was at the bottom of the first one. Now he's at the top. Carlos May still doing what he does very well. Steve Bry was a nice free agent in a platoon with Tony Muser largely. Orta again didn't hit 300, but he's close, 284. I think he was 293 in the previous one. It was a big fall for Dick Allen from hitting 327 to 259. That may have been just enough. He only had 10 homers also, and he had 7 a year ago. So, unlike Willie Horton, who's had 15 and 20 home runs, we've seen Stargell with 15 and 20 home runs. There's 2 years of just not enough home runs for Dick Allen. Really hurt that chance to get to and win a World Series, perhaps. Melton improved the average a little bit. And then everybody else is a sub-250 hitter in a slumping year. You see Aparicio. He had some big hits, but he's still just a 241 hitter. Another bad year for Bradford, hitting close to the 238 that his card rates. But really bad years out of Ken Henderson and Stinson. Henderson had some big hits, but he also slumped in between. Could steal some bases, did have 8 homers. Is second on the club with 8. Bob Stinson has a nice on base of 341 to go with a 227 average. Both catchers walked a ton. You see Brian Downing's first year with the Chi Sox hitting 202, but a 396 on base. It meant that the team average is down about 10 points. But the pitching is better by about a half a run. And now the bullpen that was at the bottom is now currently at the top. Because Rich Gossage, having one of the greatest years we've ever had out of a closer, because he's beyond a closer. He's a long man / closer. 36 and a third innings, 3 runs allowed, 16 and 52. How about a shout out to Dave Lemons, who was just as effective as Terry Forster, who got off of his schneid. Forster had been pitching poorly with a great card previously. Now those 3 guys, they're joined by Mike Garman, but frankly Mike Garman really didn't hurt the team. He only had 1 loss. He was just a mop-up man anyway. We see Wilbur Wood again, similar amount of innings, similar 1-loss record, a few more complete games, Again, it's that ability to pitch on 2 days rest is what they need. Bart Johnson did a little bit better with a better card. But really, the culprits here are number 3 and number 4 starters, Tom Bradley, Stan Bonson. Losing records, terrible earned run average, 483 for Bradley and 512 for Bonson. Bradley actually pitched okay in the postseason in 2 starts. He was quick hooked early because of, those 6 losses he had. Frankly, you have to look at the offense, wasn't sharp enough. This offense should hit 270. It should have gotten better instead of gotten worse. And the starting pitching did get worse. At least to get to a World Series, you're going to need Wilbur Wood, Bart Johnson to maintain what he's doing, and another guy to squeeze in there that's better than Bradley and Bonson. That's pretty much what this team needs. And they need Dick Allen and Carlos May to rebound with even better years. Probably Dick Allen. Carlos May did a nice job. Dick Allen's got to do better. Ken Henderson's card will come back. That's got to do better. So with that, let's take a look now at the Chicago White Sox stack. They're going to bring back 9 of their hitters. So the offense should be in fine shape. They do have this interesting platoon of Bob Stinson and Brian Downing as catchers. You got a +1 arm, you got a -1 arm, a right-hander, a switch hitter, a guy versus lefties, a guy versus righties. Plenty of walks for both players. One could be a DH if the other one is catching. Tony Muser, presently the everyday first baseman, will probably be more of a defensive replacement and a spot starter. Here's Orta. We got to hit 300 with this card. We've had it twice now, and he's yet to hit 316, even with the notion he's maybe a one-way player with a bad split. Melton had that big grand slam in Game 5 to keep the series going, but overall had kind of a quiet year. But still, got to stay out of those double plays if you can. Draws enough walks, good defense, good everyday player, Bill Melton. This is the last great year of his career. Then beyond 73, he'll fade. Is it time to turn the everyday job over to Bucky Dent or just make him a utility infielder? He doesn't sound like World Series shortstop to me. At least not until later in the decade, of course. As a 3 everywhere, more of a utility player. Symmetrical, which is nice for a utility player. But it's not like you're getting Bud Harrelson or Larry Boa or Mark Belanger out of this guy. If he was a 1, it'd be a different story. Maybe they can upgrade him if he turns into a 1 or 2 shortstop by 1976. That's still to be determined. Here's a free agent that they could trade or to hold on to. Good defensive outfielder. All our outfielders they have here are good defensively. That's a good thing for a White Sox team who notoriously had a terrible outfield defense. Late in the decade, it was just awful. In the Lamar Johnson era, etc., 77 and beyond. But maybe it was the outfield grass that was so bad, which is why they played bad. But anyway, for now, it's really good defense. With Bry and Henderson, we have this card for 2 more years. So he has to turn it on. Step 1 is to get to 250 and then go beyond. Hasn't hit 250 yet with it. And Buddy Bradford, it's hitting in the 230s with this. And frankly, it's because we leave him in there against lefties. Just because a lot of times in a game they'll pull the lefty and then bring the righty in, and Bradford is perfectly in line to make a late game push. That's what happened in Game 6, as he was still playing when they brought Raleigh Fingers in. Unfortunately, he didn't roll on his card. It's hard to complain about losing when you're rolling on Raleigh Fingers' card the last 2 batters of the season. So only 3 pitchers, just 3. Bart Johnson, 2 more years with arguably his best card. He can't pitch on 3 days rest though. Better suited to be a number 3. Mike Garman had a bad year, but it's a good card. That's an anomaly. He was probably left in at point of weakness or just left in to mop up. But that's a good card. 82 innings, 263 ERA. And you can see how now, even more so, Rich Gossage, I don't see the workload lightening up at all. If anything, it might even get heavier. He's now in that rarefied air of being used the way the Dodgers used Mike Marshall in 1974 to the tune of 200 innings coming out of the bullpen. I got no problems in simulating a 162 game version of Gossage where he pitches 170, 180 innings. He only pitched 142. That's still, there's no starts there. No starts. 142 innings in a 162 game season. So there are obviously big Hall of Fame White Sox, Wall of Fame, Ring of Honor, if you ever want to call it, White Sox players from '72 that we're going to have to take a look at and see who they're keeping, who they're putting on waivers, and who they retire. Okay, we begin with the best they have. Dick Allen, the MVP of 1972. Had a good year in 2023. The most recent follow-up, he underachieved a bit, hurt him a little bit. They couldn't get beyond the League Championship Series. To his credit, they got deeper into their season and they improved by 5 games. But they still couldn't get past Oakland and they couldn't get to a World Series. Great news is, even though the MVP season is concluded, he still has a 1,000 OPS season coming up in 73, and he leads everybody in slugging and OPS in 74. So this is really great news for the White Sox. And it's quite possible that even with, if you want to call it a slightly more inferior card, which is debatable, he could overachieve with it. And so, no reason to think the White Sox and Dick Allen can't get back to where they just were. Next up is Louis Aparicio. And it could be Louis' time. 73 would be his final year. Hall of Famer. 73, he's with Boston in a full season. His range is going to be a 3 now. But he does hit 271. He hasn't been property of the White Sox since 1970. So, yeah, he's going to be a starting shortstop for somebody this year. But at age 39, I mean, the writing's on the wall. You don't normally see full-time shortstops with 561 plate appearances at age 39, unless you're Louis Aparicio. So, if you're the White Sox, sure, you want him back, but you're also in the back of your mind thinking, if we could trade him, that might be a good scenario. And do we really want to take less range at shortstop? How important is it to find a shortstop who's a 1 or 2 defensively? All right. The third player is Carlos May. Carlos May tied Dick Allen with 308 batting average in 72. That is one of 2 All-Star appearances for Carlos. He has MVP votes in 73 as well. 843 OPS in 72. He won't get there again until a short stint in 77. And now you're starting to see that he's got 4 years left in his career, and he doesn't play at age 30 anymore. So he's just 25 years old. 20 home runs. The stolen bases, he's down to 8 stolen bases. You have to be careful on players that you're not overly sentimental about them. And there's another guy that is outfitted for a trade if a suitor comes along. Because, again, we know we got a potent offense already. We saw 9 guys we liked that are coming back. We're adding Dick Allen. But as far as Aparicio and Carlos May, they're not necessarily that important at this point. What's important is getting a great pitching staff together. And that'll begin with Wilbur Wood. Yes, Wilbur Wood will have a new card. And he won't be pitching on 3 days rest with it. 73 Wood. Ooh, actually, yeah, he can. Yeah, 73 wood card, you can do that. He's got a 131 whip, and then 120, 137. 76, he gets injured, has a 110 whip. That would be interesting. There's plenty of time to do this. At this point, he's a lifetime White Sox. We know he's a keeper. And there's not, I just don't want to evaluate this now. We know he's a White Sox. Let's just move on. Do you want him to pitch on 2 days rest? Obviously, it makes sense, but what if his performance on 2 days rest is a whip of 1.3? Now you have to wonder, I'd rather see if I can find a couple guys with whips of 120 or 110 or below. So, such as the next guy, Tom Bradley. He would move on to a trade. I think he ends up on the Giants. $69 to $75. So, he can pitch on 3 days rest for the Giants now. But his ERA goes up by almost a run. 125 whip. And then it gets even worse. So, this card is available. I mean, this card is not property of the White Sox, but they can hold on to it. You know, we've seen this happen a lot. We saw the Cubs hang on to Fergie Jenkins' card when he should have gone to the Rangers. So, they could theoretically hold on to him, but sounds like he might be a trade. There's a lot of parts, a lot of complexities to this White Sox offseason. You have keepers, and then you have locks. Dick Allen is a lock. Wilbur Wood is a lock. But Aparicio, May, and Bradley are keepers, but for who? The White Sox or somebody else? All right, we have 3 more pitchers. It's a lot of change to your pitching staff in one off season. It'd be great if they had a great rookie in 75 or 76 to turn to. But next up is Stan Bonson. Did have a long career, but he was with the Yankees and the Expos, White Sox. With the White Sox through 75, then Oakland, then the Expos. 73 is a lot like 72. Can pitch on 3 days rest. He's a 21-game loser, for Pete's sakes. He's got a 144 whip. These are not glorious numbers. And then it gets worse. For the 75 A's, it's a 145. So that's 3 years in a row with a whip over 1.4. That's not exactly very glamorous. But here is an interesting scenario. At age 31 with Oakland, he splits time starting and relieving, throws 143 innings with a 116 whip, and he does it for Oakland. And we've been talking about this. The best way to knock out the Dynasty A's is to take their players. So even though it's out beyond the boundaries of the Dynasty, you still have the rights to Stan Bonson, regardless of who he plays for. So you could steal up to the 76 card. Worst case, put him in the bullpen if he doesn't get enough starts, if he's a relief starter. 35 games, just 14 starts. Is that complete games? Games finished. 14 starts, 10 games finished. Well, here's the thing. Let's make him a keeper. Well, let's also indicate it's got to be 76 to be a White Sox. Because otherwise, you know, he's just kind of meh. So, White Sox, great start. Plenty of talent. 6 players. They want to keep 6. Doesn't mean that they will. They can only keep 4. But that means that they'll be trading in the offseason, and teams will be calling the White Sox, asking for Aparicio and May and Bradley and Bonson. They'll be asking for these guys. Next guy, Dave Lemons. I think he might have turned into a pumpkin. And we have our answer right there. We can say goodbye to Dave Lemons' career. Get a chance to look at his roster sheet for probably the only time. You know, was part of the expansion in 69 for the Cubs at age 20. And he put this nice season together in 72, and he ran it back for 4 years. So we got a nice performance for a guy who is on a who's who. I don't remember Dave Lemon's kind of thing, but yeah, he had a nice little career in the carryover league. He is on the retired list. Which brings us to Terry Forster. We really need another lights out performance in this timeline if we can get it. It would really help the White Sox. Give me this 1 out of 4 years. Do you have one more great year like you had in 72? Just one more year before you end up with the Dodgers. So this is the season we're talking about. He's 20 years old. He throws 100 innings. He's got a 119 whip. Can you come close to that? At least once in the next 4 years. Couple things here. In 1974, he leads the league in saves, but that's often not a telling stat as far as how effective he is. 125 whip though, that's pretty close to what he just did. The other years, 145, 145, and 150. Well, but we want that. Yeah, that will be the year. 125 whip, beggars can't be choosers. It's just he went from 119 to 125, so it's hard to argue with that. ERA does shoot up from 225 to 362. Be wary of that. In 34 more innings, he gave up 55 more hits, 6 more home runs, and he only struck out 1 more batter. So all the signs are there that eventually you want to get out of this card. And it'll be, the beneficiaries will be the Dodgers, but that's going to be 78 Dodgers. And then I think the 82 Braves, maybe. I mean, it's, yeah. Yeah. But you have to highlight 74 for Forster here while you're doing this. Well, they will have a really interesting offseason. They have 7 guys they want to keep. They obviously can't keep that many. Sometimes, though, if you don't have a trade partner, guys that are keepers simply go to waivers. And it could be a case for Aparicio. If nobody calls the White Sox for that trade, why make a trade for Aparicio when the White Sox are going to have to put him on waivers, you know, because he's old. You know? In the case of Bradley and Bonson, it's ineffectiveness. They have maybe one good year left in their timeline. A lefty setup man, the Gossage is valued. Wilbur Wood has the value. Dick Allen has the value. I think you got 3 locks there. And you have to decide which of the other 4 guys do you want to keep. Aparicio, May, Bradley, Bonson, or perhaps it's somebody you trade for. So that's it today. We're going to go up and look at the overall 29 teams eliminated. And now we're seeing that we have an abundance of keepers. We have plus 19 keepers who aren't going to be kept. It means they're going to be sent to the waiver or retirement pool. Basically, the 19 will go to the waiver pool, and 2 of the waivered players will end up on the retirement pool, the 2 worst, arguably. So that's where we are with just 3 teams left still playing baseball as we get to closer to our off season. Thanks for checking this analysis of the White Sox. We'll see you next time.